Hello everybody, how are we all? Today I am going to be doing exactly what you guys suggested on my previous live stream. It wasn't really a live stream, I just wanted to test a few extra things and I thought it might as well do it and ask you guys what you thought about what Ethiopian opal I should cut next. I seem to string that word together very strangely. Ethiopian opal. So there was this one, there was the big orange green flashy one, which is actually the one I thought you guys would pick, but I'm glad you chose this one, and the small little crystal one. But this is by far the most interesting for a number of reasons. But first we'll just get into how it looks. So because it was stored with oil, I've basically had it wrapped up soaking in tissues, and it looks like the majority of the oil is pretty much gone. It just feels like a rock now, so that's been pretty successful. If we zoom right in on it, it's definitely an Ethiopian opal, but I'm actually not 100% sure if it's a wello or what they call I think it's a shiwa, something like that, shiwa. There's two main areas from Ethiopia where this opal comes from, and the wello is by far the most stable and most sought after and popular. But they typically don't look as dark as this. I mean, there's always exceptions in the world of opal. So we'll just hope that it is a wello opal, but we'll see if it's really unstable or not after I cut it. You can see here, huge reds, streaks of blue, streaks of green, a lot of mud, and there's this halo kind of outer crust of the opal that's this weird off-coloured caramelish colour, which I'm not a huge fan of, and that might need to be cut back. But firstly, I'll just get through the muddy section. You can see that it goes all the way through here, and staring into the brand new light, if I can actually line this up. Oh, this light's going to be way too bright. Oh, you can see it there. So you can see right in the center there's a window that goes all the way through the opal. So it actually does look pretty clean, which is kind of cool. It's hard to see though, but yeah, that's something that's got me a little bit excited about this. It could be a really big piece even when it's finished. So I guess we'll give it a quick weight. So it's starting out at, oh yeah, it's a bit higher than I thought. So almost 43 carats, which gives us a lot to play with for the first Ethiopian opal. But yeah, I'm going to, similar to the Indonesian opal, start with a lower grit bit. So I'm not going to go with the really strong bits that I've got. I'm going to go with a pretty old, worn out bit. It'll probably be around about the 200. I might even use one of the bits from the beginner's carving kit, because I'm just a little bit worried about the stability of this stuff and whether it's just going to fracture away on me. God, this new light is so much better than the old lamps that I was using. It's actually bringing out this colour. I'll do a video on lighting now that I know a lot more about it. There are a lot of things that you can do with lighting that just really benefits opals in particular. But that'll be in the future. For now, let's focus on this. I'm going to get set up and we will get to carving. Well, I got interrupted there. I was cruising along with the rotary tool and just taking off all the mud, but something came up, so I stopped that, and rather than attacking it further with the rotary tool, all I did was use the Allen key, well, the pin for changing the bits on my rotary tool, and just basically just chipped away at it. Because as you saw when I was going at it, there were these rocks deep in the mud. So here's an example of one. They're really hard. It's like asphalt, just chunks of rock that were within that mud that was on top and underneath. That stuff was pretty easy to scoop out, so I decided to just claw at it with this, and I've gotten quite a long way just doing that. So a lot of the mud's off the bottom part. Well, what's the bottom and what's the top really? Off this part, and then there's still a little bit of mud in the deep grooves that I couldn't really get at. That'll be a rotary tool job. That's a bit better focus. Yeah, so there's a couple pockets here of mud. But what taking off the mud allowed me to do is not only see the colour bar going around the whole piece, it actually let me see inside the piece. Now this is incredibly disappointing. So it's a bit soul shattering. So here you can't really see it all that well. You can see the colour, you can see the glowing. But if we angle up towards the light, now, what do you notice in all of this? See that? Absolutely shattered. Both my hopes for the piece and the piece itself. It's just, yeah, it's got so many fractures inside it. And I wasn't treating it poorly or anything, and we only had a couple of minutes going with the rotary tool, and it was just scraping away the mud, so I wasn't really doing anything to the actual opal itself. And it wasn't getting any heat or anything, it was just, this is just literally how it's gone. So this is actually just going to have to be a bit of an experimental test piece now. And yeah, all it took was taking off the mud, so I guess lessons have been learnt, and I would say probably avoid any piece that is covered in mud. So my other pieces are nice and clean. I mean, they're still rough, but they've been tumbled or something to get rid of most of the dirt. That other big piece has a fair bit of dirt in it, but this one had dirt all around it, and I thought, oh, that'll be fun as a bit of a gamble learning piece. And it's definitely a gamble, and it's definitely a learning piece, because you can see here, now that we can see inside it, bam. Absolutely shattered. So, that brings me to the next part, which is going to be, where do I go from here? I still love the colour in it. The thing hasn't completely fallen apart, it doesn't feel fragile, so I think we're just going to ignore that internal shattering, or at least be aware that it's there, but for now, I still want to grind away all of this, so we're going to go back to the Dremel, back to the same bit we were using, clear off the last of the mud, and maybe get rid of these ugly lumps that are sticking out of it. And yeah, polish it up to be, well, not polish it, carve it up to be a bit of a more regular shape, get rid of all this hazy nonsense around the outside, get rid of all this crust. It's kind of like a potchy-like material. I guess that's what Ethiopian Opal potch is going to look like, especially for this piece. And yeah, we're gonna persist and see if we can get anything out of this. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it just crumbles on us at some point during this dremeling. I'll make sure to keep it cool so I don't make the fractures even worse. Maybe the fractures will look cool in a finished piece. I'm not sure. But yeah, a bit disappointing. That's the update. I'll get back to grinding away and I'll record it just in case it does shatter on me. But this will be more of a test piece. I can test a whole range of things, such as heating it and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, well, they're known for being fragile, and this one looks like at some point it got a bit butchered, a bit bashed around. Maybe it's a heat change thing. I've kept it pretty similar temperature, no temperature fluctuations or anything like that. Maybe it was during the mailing, postage bashed it around, maybe it was during the mining. I mean, it could have been the part where this front face fractured off, because you can see here remnants of a pretty severe fracture. And who knows, maybe that triggered that shattering all the way through the piece. It's fragile stuff, so yeah. Let's learn from it and let's carry on. We're learning a lot here. So I've got a few suspicions about this piece. You saw when I was carving away that this chip came off at one point. So that'll be nice. I've got a couple things I want to try with little chips like this. A few experiments, heat treatments and stuff. So that'll be useful. But here, if we look really carefully at the top of this Ethiopian opal, what is that? What is that colour change? I'm starting to suspect that the opal that I bought had been treated in some sort of way, because as soon as you get a couple mils deep, it changes to this weird translucent, off-coloured milky white, which has me a little concerned. And now that I look at some of this mud, it's not... Some of this deeper mud seems like it's almost been cooked. So that's got me a little bit concerned about how this piece was treated before it got to me. You can see here on the bottom that that white cloudiness is also present. So I don't know if that's just how it is in this material. It's got that 2 different shades of potch kind of thing, but it's just funny how getting, I don't know, 1 or 2 mils deep, it turns into this white cloud when I couldn't see that prior to starting the piece. But apart from that, if we have a look at this, and I move my fingers out of the way to show you the light, you can see here that it is so fractured on the inside. It's absolutely shattered deep in there. My camera won't quite focus on it like I want. How about we stare at the sun? If I stare at the sun, there you go, that's a good shot. So look at that, it's absolutely shattered. And I think it's actually getting worse as I keep going. So I don't know whether it's the effect of the water, whether it's because there's already something in there and I'm playing around with it, those fractures are just increasing, or yeah, or what's going on. But that's highly unfortunate. And I'm also noticing that even though the piece is not overly hydrophane, not as much as I expected anyway, it is seeming to change its overall body tone. So if we go back down, so the colour isn't disappearing, we've still got the flashes all across the piece. You can see that it runs all the way along the side. You get this nice, like, ominous red strip. So you can see that there's that really nice red beam just going straight through the middle of the piece, all the way around. It's really nice, and then it gets to this face and it kind of spreads out across the whole face. Flashes of red and green and blue. Even green on the bottom corner. But yeah, it's... I don't know, I reckon it's changing over time, and I mean, we saw how dark it was at the start, and that wasn't just because of all the mud blocking out all the light from getting into it. I reckon this has been treated somehow, most likely smoke treated. And in that case, the heat from that treatment could have been what caused the initial fractures, or the way that this has been sheared off and there was a jagged piece over here that I carved away. Whatever caused that hit to shear off that front might have already introduced some fractures, but I'm 100% sure that it's getting worse as we keep going. But I guess that's not gonna really stop me, because I wanna either see it explode in front of my eyes, or I want to see if I can resurrect something out of it. Even if I can just get rid of all of this and have that nice colour, but also that fractury mess, and it stays intact as one whole piece, I'll be happy with that. So yeah, it's not going to be a gem quality Ethiopian opal, that's for sure. But I don't know what it'll be yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and round off this top to get rid of this big lump until we get to that color area, and round off the bottom here as well. You can see that the fracture lines are starting to come through, so it was clearly bashed around a bit at some point and had a few fractures in the bottom, but we could see those from the beginning pretty much, so that was not a surprise. But yeah, how it's behaving is a bit of a surprise to me. You know, you learn. I don't think Ethiopian opal is becoming my favourite by any means, with this piece being a representative of their kind, but yeah, it's still nice to try it out and learn. I won't be rushing out to buy any more in a hurry. But we've still got 2 other pieces after this one, so let's finish this one and see what I can get out of it. So carving away like crazy, you saw towards the start there I was working on the bottom and you could see some small chips were coming off. These things are like little shards of glass. So I always carve with a shield between me and the opal just in case of this very thing from happening, because I mean some of this is like tiny grains of rice all the way through to like powdered little bits of glass. So that stuff could actually do damage, especially if it gets in your eye, because it's not coming off slowly, it's coming off at the speed of light. So yeah, that's the big chunk that came off before. That's all the small chunks that were coming off when I was working on that base. So that's just the first thing to note. Always wear safety glasses or have a shield. I noticed that Justin in his carving videos didn't have a shield, so yeah, definitely have your safety glasses in that case. But now, moving on to the opal. So, it's gotten fairly interesting. So this is it starting to dry. I did a little bit of something unusual to it, but we'll just have a look at the base first, or even all over. You can see these lines. This is why I think people see a lot of crazing in Ethiopian opal. It just tends to just naturally have this kind of effect. And I'll let this dry out a lot because I'm not going to work on it much more now. This is the point where I'll leave it until I plan a few experiments to do with it. You can see here that I've cut it very strangely at the top. So, I'll wet it and we can explain why I tried that. So the bottom, I was working on it, digging into the chips, trying to see whether the chips would cause the entire thing to fracture and fall apart. It hasn't. They're still there. They're coming right up to the surface here. They're very significant. But what I was trying to see is this colour bar, I've carved all the way up to the top of this colour bar, and you can notice here that there's this halo with the colour in it, and then in the centre there's just absolutely nothing. There's no trace of any kind of colour, which confuses me because the front face here does have that colour bar going across. If this was an Australian opal, I would expect all of this to have the same kind of level of colour as what's on the edge here. Now this top colour bar was the most vibrant across this entire piece, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to leave this potch on the top and I'm just going to dive in from the sides at that colour bar level just to see how the colour bar plays across the entire thing. So it turns out it's very strange because I'm not seeing any of the colour continue into here, and just this tiny little trim around the outside. So yeah, you can see here I've gone all the way up to the edge of this colour bar and the colour bar continues, and then this halo stops and the colour is gone. It happens all the way around the piece, which is really confusing me because the front face, it has nice clear colour bar and it just doesn't exist deeper over here where the same kind of material as what's on the front is. So the fact that the colour just stops beyond this yellowy area about, I don't know, less than a millimetre into it is very confusing and makes me think that this opal was somehow treated to bring out this colour, even on the front here. So because this was exposed to whatever the treatment was, maybe it had a bit of an effect, and if I grind away at the face, maybe I'll lose this as well. Which is what I'm going to do at some point, because what I do with Australian opal, as many of you have seen in previous videos, is you find that colour bar, you uncover the colour bar by going around it, just to see what it looks like and how even it is, all that kind of stuff. Go around the outer edge, and then you decide where you're going to attack from, whether you're going to go from the top or from the bottom, and work out how you're going to face your opal. This I've done a different way because I could see the outer edge, I could see where the colour was, and I thought I'd just go from top and bottom and see what the colour play is like on the face. But I'm not seeing a face. I'm seeing a face here and a face on the edge where the colour play is, but I'm not seeing any potential to get a face from the top or the bottom of this piece. So I'll leave it at that for this video, but the next step, I'm going to plan the next steps. I reckon what I'm going to do is basically go all out, take off this top, see if there's anything in there, see if the fracturing destroys it, and I'm also going to rub off this face at least 1 millimeter deep into the face and see if that colour that's sitting there is literally just painted on the surface or whether it's deeper. I don't know how you could paint that effect on the surface or how a treatment would bring that out, but it's definitely got some... It's got me bamboozled, that's for sure. So if anyone knows a bit more about Ethiopian Opal and has seen an effect like this, let me know. But otherwise, at the moment, I'm thinking that it might have just been treated somehow. Probably smoke treated, but yeah, I don't know. In the next video we will, well, in the next time I show this opal in a video, we'll do some funny things like take off that face and see if there's anything behind it or not. Or whether it's just some kind of weird mask. And then maybe we can work out a treatment method to bring that back once I carve all of this all the way back and polish it up. So yeah, a bit of a disappointing end to the first attempt at playing around with this Ethiopian opal. We've got a couple more, but I really want to go back to doing some Aussie opal for a little bit, and then we'll get back to the Ethiopian opal over time. In the meantime, I'm just going to let this sit without oil on it and just let it dry and see if it falls apart. That's another test I want to do. So that's the one that I'll do in the background while we're working on some classic Aussie opal. So yeah, interesting, disappointing. Big bad Ethiopian opal experiments will continue, however. So see ya in the next video.